Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be giving you a little review of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, just in time for spooky season. Hopefully this should be going out tomorrow, which is Halloween, and yeah, I thought it would be the perfect time to share with you my thoughts on the classic novel Frankenstein. So as always, grab your beverage of choice and let's get into it. So I want to start off this review with asking you a question. What is the classic scene that you think of when you hear the word Frankenstein? What does that conjure into your mind? Like, take a second, think about it. For me, and I think for a lot of people, the classic scene is a mad scientist in a lab coat, maybe his like hair standing on end, maybe like goggles on his head, something like that, big gloves, and there's a body on a table of, you know, what's going to be the monster, and he's conducting lightning into it, and it sits up and it becomes alive, and then he does this like evil maniacal laugh and he says, "It's alive, it's alive." That doesn't happen in the novel. Not that way anyway. Like, there is obviously a scientist, he does create out of different body parts a creature, he does conduct electricity into it, but it isn't this like dramatic, like thunderstorm, mad scientist, evil creation. And I found that interesting because I'm like, where did that come from? Because it's not in the book. Something much more diluted and tamer is in the book. So did that just get like exaggerated over time to the point where that's what we conjure up now when we think of Frankenstein? Like, I wonder who was like, that's just not giving enough crazy scientist like vibes, we need to like up the ante a bit. I don't know, it's just, I found that really interesting. I haven't seen any film depictions of Frankenstein, so maybe I should go and watch them, and maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe it's just, you know, classic like Hollywood being like everything needs to be much more dramatic. But I just found that really interesting because, you know, when he starts to create the monster, I was like, oh, okay, this big scene is coming, it's going to be really dramatic, and then it just kind of wasn't. Which is not necessarily a criticism. I mean, I suppose it is, but yeah, it was just something that I noticed. Another thing that I want to point out is, I think a lot of people, including myself, had believed that the monster in Frankenstein is called Frankenstein. Oh, Muka's coming to join us. Hi, Muka. Yeah, I had thought the monster in Frankenstein was called Frankenstein, but Frankenstein is actually the doctor's name. It's Dr. Frankenstein's monster. The creature or monster in this novel doesn't actually have a name as far as I know. He's just always referred to as the creature or the monster, something like that. So yeah, just those two little myths that I wanted to bust right at the start of this video. That big whole scene isn't as dramatic as we've probably seen it depicted, and the monster is not called Frankenstein. The doctor is Victor Frankenstein, and his monster is Frankenstein's monster. So another question I wanted to address is, was this book actually scary? I would say yes and no. It was definitely atmospheric. It was definitely melancholic. Is that how you say that word? Definitely had like a dark, dreary atmosphere. It was perfect for reading during spooky season. However, there was elements of it that I did find scary. Like when he first creates his monster, he is immediately afraid of it and immediately is like, oh, I don't know what I've done, kind of thing. And then every time the creature is kind of spotted, it is quite creepy, but not to the point where I was actually profoundly scared. And I think that that's probably just because this is obviously a classic and we are so desensitized now because we have all these films and books and TV shows with all these special effects, and just, I feel like the horror genre we've really pushed the boundaries lately, and so we've seen so much, like even on YouTube, even horror games, like there's just so much out there that it actually takes a lot more to truly scare someone. So I think that did leave the book feeling a little bit more tame. But I don't know if the point of the book was honestly to scare you. I think it was more to make you think. I think it was quite a deep book actually. It raised a lot of questions for me about, you know, when you're so fixed on an idea of pursuing something as Victor Frankenstein was with creating this creature of giving life, basically, is what he wanted to do. sometimes you have your blinkers on and you don't really think about the ramifications of what you're trying to do and what the consequences might be, and if this is actually a good thing for society as a whole, which I won't spoil it, but it ends up not being. That was like a big question, I think, and theme in the book. There was also a really strong theme of nature. Obviously, this idea of creating this creature that is sort of stitched together different body parts and artificially given life. There was a lot of moral questions raised. You know, is this unethical? Is this something that should have ever been done or that should ever be done? There was a lot of like depictions of nature. Nature was a very, very big theme in this book. And I think there was a juxtaposition there between the natural world and how healing and beautiful it is compared to this monster that Frankenstein created, which was so unnatural and that everyone detested. So nature was a really, really big part in this book, and every section of the book that talked about nature was just so beautifully written and so evocative. I really, really loved that. So that was one of the things I liked. Another like is that it was very easy and accessible to read, especially for a classic. I think people are often, including myself, really put off by classics because we think they're going to be clunky, overly wordy, overly long, and boring and too descriptive, etc, etc. This really was not. I think it was around 280 pages, something like that. And I just found it really accessible. I found it really, really easy and enjoyable to read. I actually found myself actively wanting to read more. You know, I'd finish a chapter and maybe look at my watch and be like, oh, I should go do something else or I should put it away. I'd be like, I want to read another chapter, which doesn't always happen with classics. Sometimes classics can be a little bit tougher to get through. This one really wasn't, and I really, really admired it for that. What I also really liked about it is it made you sympathise with the monster in a lot of ways, and also another question it brought up for me was the idea of AI in our society. Artificial intelligence is becoming the new hot topic, and I actually found a lot of similarities between this novel and what we see in society today. You know, people creating things that have a mind of their own. And is that a good thing for society? Is that good for us, or is that actually detrimental for us? And how is it for these artificially intelligent beings? What do they see, you know? Because Frankenstein's monster is just created. He doesn't ask to be created, and yet he is. And people are terrified of him, and he has this, you know, horrendous existence. Is that the same for these AI beings that we're creating? That they didn't ask to be here, and yet we're creating them to do jobs for us and work for us, and I don't know. It sparked a lot of questions, which I think any well-written book should spark questions, and this one definitely did. So those were some of my likes. My only real dislike is, I would say, some parts felt a little bit rushed. There were some sections that I kind of wanted just to be a little bit longer and a little bit more explained, or just revelled in a little bit more. And also I think it could have been scarier, but as I've said before, I don't know if the point in it was to be scary, and it probably was actually really scary for the time it was released. I think it was released in the 1800s. I mean, it was first published in 1818, so this was probably absolutely terrifying for that time. It's just now in 2023, it maybe doesn't hold up as scary as it was first at the time, but those were my only real dislikes. I absolutely loved this book, and I think if you're curious, you should definitely go and read it. I think I gave it a 4.5 stars on Goodreads. And yeah, I would really urge you, if you've got the interest, go read Frankenstein, because I loved it. I didn't even mention this, how gorgeous is my copy. I love these Penguin Classic like cloth bound versions. I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, yeah, go read it and let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!